All right, well, it's about that time, so we'll go ahead and get started. If you want, we'll be starting in chapter 3, beginning of chapter 3 here in a few minutes when we get to our new material. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody tonight. Maybe we can have a good study, a good discussion here in Exodus. So, kind of just to refresh us and get us mentally reminded of where we're at. We followed the children of Israel to Egypt, and they're now slaves in Egypt. Things are not good. They've grown so much over this few hundred years that Pharaoh has made things hard on them, and it's got to the point where they're just killing Israelite babies to try to control the population. And out of that, we have the introduction of Moses. During that time, we're introduced to Moses, who was a main character for quite a while for us here. But we have him coming into the story during that hard time. And the story of how he didn't die and where he actually ended up. He actually ended up living in Pharaoh's household with Pharaoh's daughter as her son, but also the fact that he was raised by his parents partially, and knew who his parents were, knew that he was a Hebrew, and um, his heritage and those kind of things. We talked about that. And then we got to a point where Moses was 40 and something happened. So start there. What happened that really changed things for him?
He seen his people being beaten, and he killed the Pharaoh taskmaster and then buried him and thought that he was.
Yeah. It seems that the situation has affected him enough that he was interested, at least in going out and looking it over. And maybe he's thinking of ways that he might be able to help in some way. I don't know. But he did come across a Hebrew being beaten and killed the Egyptian that was doing it. And it was found out. And because of that, he knew that he had to leave. So where did he go? Where is he at in our story right now? He went to the land of Midian. What happened when he got there?
He met some other men trying to stop these girls from feeding their sheep.
Yeah, he runs up on a family there and through an occurrence where they were being bullied by some other shepherds, takes up for them, gets invited to their house, ends up staying there, ends up marrying one of the daughters, and that's where he's at. That's where he's at. Um, Seems like he probably would think that this is how my life turned out. This is where I'm at now. Seems like he settles there, has children there, and that's what he intended on. Probably doing the rest of his life was living there with his family in this area. So that's my bit of review up until to where we are here now. Does anybody have anything to add or to say before we actually begin in chapter 3?
Just one thing, and I don't think we pointed it out. I think Lonnie's pointed it out years ago. At the start of chapter 2, his mother and his dad was of the house of Levi. So he was of the Levi tribe, which enabled him to be of the priest line that later on we see that he's put in charge of the people and the things that he does before God. He's actually in the Levi tribe as a son from his mom and his dad.
Yeah, and those the priestly things will come later, but
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you didn't catch that at the beginning of 2, you would overlook that, and I think your dad actually pointed that out years past.
Yeah, once the priestly line is started, that will start through Aaron,
Right.
which that will be where that begins. But he is of the Levites, and that is important to
Mhm.
know, especially when it introduces Aaron and that, and the things that it says about that. Yes. Anything else? Okay. Well, let's begin here. Chapter 3. First verse says, Now Moses was tending the flock, Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Okay, so this gives us an idea. Someone asked about Midian the other day, and I kind of tried to say what I was thinking from reading this right here. We know where he's at now. He's Mount Horeb. Now, what do we also know Horeb as? Mount
Mhm.
Sinai. Okay, we know that as Mount Sinai. So where Midian, I think, typically would be on the map is farther over than Mount Sinai there, but that gives us an idea about where he went and settled, and it was called Midian. Midianites apparently lived in that area because that's who he's with now. He's in the desert. It refers to it as the mountain of God. Now, why do you think it does that at this point?
Believe that it's holy.
Okay, what?
That's where he's going to speaks to Moses from this mountain. He's going to speak to the children of Israel later.
Yeah.
He's telling the story.
He's telling the story. When he actually records this, he's recording for them, describing to them where this happened, and they would obviously relate Mount Sinai to all those things that are going to happen in the future. So here, as he's writing it, he refers to it at that. Uh, so those that were telling the story again, or like reading it later, would that's just a description of the way they would have viewed Sinai, Horeb here. Okay. Verse 2, And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. So something happens here. He looks out, a ways out there. There's a bush, and it's on fire. And interesting, I guess, to see anyway, but it tells us that, it was not consumed. I don't know how big of a bush it was, but I assume it wasn't very large from pictures I've seen of the terrain and the things that live there. And this caught his attention at this point. And
I think what really caught his attention, in addition to the flame, it says that the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame. So, if you was to see somebody in a flame and it's not burning up, I mean, it would be more impressive than the bush not burning up.
okay, I didn't take it that he actually realized there was an angel in the flame. I just thought that was the method that he was appearing to him as, was a flame that didn't burn up. Maybe there's more there to that than I realized. But
I'm just going from this version. I don't know exactly what it is, but it says, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush.
yeah, that's what mine says as well.
But I mean,
go ahead.
that could be something where Moses writing this is stating a fact, like this is what happened. It may not be that in the moment he actually realized that, but in retrospect, he understood that did happen.
I took it from yeah,
Right. Same as the mountain God. Yeah.
I take it from what he does, and then what he does here in a minute when he realizes it. He didn't realize it first, but maybe he did. I'm not sure. But let's keep going here. Verse 3 says, So Moses said here to himself, I'll now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So it seems at first that he's just intrigued why, that's been burning a long time. I've been watching that thing all morning, and it's still burning. So I've got to go see what's going on over there. Is the way I kind of take that. But in verse 4 it says, So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. So at this point, God speaks to him. He's on his way over to the bush to see what's going on. Don't know how close he got to it, but God speaks to it and calls him by name. A voice does, and he answers the voice. And he said, this is God speaking here, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. So he obviously is caught off guard here, I believe, doesn't know what's going on. But first instructions that God gives him is just stop where you're at. Don't come any closer. Stay back. You don't need to come uh, any closer than you are. So at this point, he realizes he's in God's presence here. Um, from this and us having the rest of the Bible, what do we know from about being in God's presence? When somebody ends up being in the presence of God, what things can we say from our other knowledge?
They mostly fall on their face
Yes.
because
Mhm.
they're, I hesitate to say the word scared, but I think
No,
they're scared.
I think
I
they're
think
scared.
that's probably okay to say.
Mhm.
When you're in the presence of God, reverence, respect. The idea here, God is holy. He must be approached on His terms. Even the ground there, the dirt, the ground is holy, and God says, don't come. This area is holy because I'm here. Wasn't anything special about it other than this is where God was coming to him at this moment.
Which
So,
sorry, I was going to say that may be like a foreshadowing of maybe the tabernacle and of the temple. It's like there's nothing inherently holy about the tabernacle or
idols
temple.
themselves,
It's that God is there. And so I think this is an interesting foreshadowing of that.
yeah.
Well, undoubtedly, the sandals on his feet was a desecration to the ground before he was in presence of, for him to tell him to take off his shoe and stop where he's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when I went back and listened, Larson made a comment about the priests. As much stuff as specific as they were, they didn't have any sandals on. Right? They were barefoot. I think I never thought about that until I remember listening to that again. But apparently they were barefooted, and I don't know if there's some relation to that. I don't want to look too much more into that than what it says. But anyway, he's here in the presence of God. In verse 6, moreover, God said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. So, a few things here. God identifies himself. Okay, lets him know who he is here. Um, he says, I am the God of your forefathers. What can we draw from that? Where are they at? They're dead, but the fact that he is their God lends us the idea that they still exist, right?
And later
God.
on, this is used to say he's the God of the living, not of
Yes.
the dead.
Yes, that same idea. Once he knows, this is why I thought that this is the point that he realized that he was in God's presence. Once he knows, he was approaching this, looking at it, been looking at it, for however long he watched it till it didn't burn. He's coming towards it. But once he realizes that that's God, what does he do? At that point, yeah, he covers his face. Doesn't say he fell down like, well, we do have some times where people just hit the ground. But here, he at this point, he doesn't want to look anymore. He covers his face here, and he says, "I am the God of your people." So he identifies himself there, and we get this reaction from Moses. So verse 7, it says, And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I've come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. So, summing up what God says to him here, here's why. I got something to tell you, Moses. I'm ready to answer the cries of Israel. Moses knew of the cries of Israel, and I don't know how much contact Moses has had with Egypt and Israel over this next 40 years that he spent there in Midian, but um, God tells him that he's ready to deliver them. He's ready to save them. That's good news, right? Moses wanted that. It seems like a long time ago. So yes, that's great. I imagine that he was excited.
Mhm.
80. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I said over this 40 years that he spent. You know, I don't know how much. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how much contact he's had or how much he is aware of the situation's changed, but um,
I was also saying that he's getting older, so
oh
he's
yes,
hoping he gets to see.
yes. The fact that he is 80 now compared to 40, he's a lot older than he was. That's the point she was making there, and he may be very excited that he was going to get to see this something finally change in his lifetime. He might have started to doubt if he would have ever got to see um, anything different than what he had always. You know, that's what he was born into, and for 80 years, that's his people, what they've been going through. Okay, anything else?
I think he's excited to hear that God is going to do this.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, he's excited.
Yeah.
But let's get to the next verse. All right, so God, verse 10, come now, therefore I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. He says, all right, well, guess what? You're going to help me. You're going to help me do this, God says. You're going to be the one that I use.
I like here how, is it a question?
No.
It's like, Moses, would you consider doing this? Would you like to do this? It's like, no.
Not a
It's like,
proposal.
I'm choosing you. Come along, right? And yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So Moses, Moses is like, come again, hold on, what? Well, wait a minute. So verse 11, we go through the next section here is going to be this discussion about what we just said and what we just found out. So verse 11, Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So his first response is, wait a minute, me? Why me? Um, this is the most powerful king in the world, and you're wanting me to go and ask him to release all of his slaves. Imagine how absurd that does sound when you think about it practically. Like Moses apparently is here. He says, "Hold on, why would I have any ability to go and accomplish what you're talking about?"
So are you about to continue?
Yes, go
All
ahead.
right. So can we think about that just for 1 second? He asked a question here. I don't think it's a bad question. Why Moses? So, I mean, what were some reasons we can come up with right now? What do you think? Why would you pick Moses?
Well, God's ways is higher than ours, so I think God knows exactly who he wants to go. And from his actions and his lifestyle. But the other part of Moses is when God told him to come up and go to Pharaoh, he still remembers that he fled Pharaoh because he's going to kill him because he done killed an Egyptian, and he ain't relating to the God created everything. He's more worried about what Pharaoh's going to do to him when he gets back in his presence. I believe.
All right.
Well, I might be thinking differently, but I'm thinking it's like humility, maybe. Maybe God can use someone who is.
Yeah.
I mean, at first, at least it feels like he's being humble, which I think God can use people who are humble.
So maybe as characteristics that are useful.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
What about? Go ahead.
Well, I took it a different way. It's
Mhm.
like Moses kind of said, well, who am I that I'm going to go up before the king?
Right.
Well, and the humble, yes, he would be humble, but like, well, this is Pharaoh.
Yeah.
But from what we know about him so far, he's a Hebrew raised Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
Who better to do it?
So he has connections on both sides, right? And he, at some level, probably cares about both sides.
He was providentially saved as a baby.
Yes.
When a lot of people peers his age are not alive.
Yeah. Has he had a heart to save the people in the past? Yes, right? So he has connections to the Hebrews and the Egyptians, may be useful, right? He also has had a heart to save the people in the past. So I think we can look at this and say, maybe there are actual, underlying reasons why God chose Moses. I almost said Abraham, but not, he chose Moses. But it's interesting the reason he gives, the actual reason he gives. God does.
And I do think you said, talking about being humble, the second half of his life has been a lot more humbling than the first half, right? Where he had to leave, basically flee.
Mm-hmm. Shepherd instead of a
Yeah,
prince.
he's a shepherd now instead of a prince will need to. So verse 12. So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. So God foretells something. Now, that doesn't really help him at this point, I don't guess. But he says, I'll tell you what, he says, this is all going to happen. This is going to happen. God's not, it's not a proposal. This is going to happen, Moses. And after it's all over, all the people and you are going to be right back here where we're at right now on that mountain, and you're going to worship me there.
So, you mind if I?
Yeah, go on.
So, God's answer to, who am I? Why pick me? What's his answer? Is it anything about Moses?
No.
No, it's I'll be with you, right? I love that because the answer is not, well, Moses, I just think you're a great guy. I think you have great characteristics. I think you have good connections. I think those are things I would think about.
It's not, I think you can do this.
Right.
It
I'm
doesn't
going to
matter
be
who
with you.
you are.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, you're not special in this. I'm going to help you.
Right.
And like I said, it doesn't matter who you are. I'm just choosing you to be my instrument here.
Yeah.
So then, and that's where he would at least have to be submissive. Like, you can see he struggles a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see it.
And we're going to see how God goes about it. He doesn't tell him, start rounding you up a group, start rounding up an army, draw up some plans.
Mm-hmm.
Let's scheme this thing up and see if we can make it work. It's nothing like that. Nothing like that. So 13, then Moses said to God, comes back to him, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? So this is interesting. It's going to get to the point where he talks about whether or not he feels he's qualified or wants to do it. But one of the first things he says is, so if I go to them and I tell them that someone came and talked to me and told me this, God came and talked to me and told me this, who do I tell them sent me? So he has this question here for the Lord. So God answers, and God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent you. So I am is the name, the phrase that the Lord tells Moses to use. He's telling him to tell them that the true God, the one who is exists and is all knowing and is all powerful, has came to Moses and sent Moses to them to tell them this. And it goes on into 15, talking about the same thing here. It says, moreover, God said to Moses, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is my memorial to all generations. So here, and I'll do my best, and y'all can make comments. The Lord here, what was their word for the Lord God? Or how was it expressed? Maybe I'm not. Yeah. How was it written originally? And again, I'm not. There's some of y'all that are probably.
Originally in the Hebrew, it didn't have any, I guess you'd call it
Vowels.
vowels.
Yeah.
It was like W-H.
YW.
YHWH.
YHWH. Okay. Yeah. So the name here is a very revered name among the Hebrews. Way I take it, they wouldn't even say it, right? They were worried to even say the name for their name for the Lord God. They substituted Adonai, right? I believe for it, just to have something else to say
When they spoke out loud.
When they spoke out loud, to have something else to say, so they did not accidentally say it. They reverenced it so much. And I think they went in to put the A and the E in Yahweh, and now we refer to it as that. So the name that he's using there is identified.
But they had a program on, they was talking about, what we're talking about here on the actual spelling that's actually wrote down in the Hebrew. And the Jewish, I guess you call him a language person that talked about that, those two letters twice. He said the correct pronunciation of when you saying it is like when you breathe in and when you breathe out. So that every time that you actually breathe, even though you're not saying those words, you're actually saying God when you breathe. And when you take your last breath, you'll actually say God, because that's how those words or letters is actually pronounced in Hebrew when they actually say it. And I never actually heard that, but they was actually going through the teachings, and they said that they put the A in there because doing the breath deal, you couldn't actually pronounce it, so they called it Yahweh.
Maybe so. I have no idea.
Never heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you mind if I make a couple comments?
Yeah, go for
So, just go back to the I am one first. The idea of I am, I think you hit on this a little bit, but I was just wanting to round it out a little bit more with what this would mean to the people. So, the idea of I am means that he is self-sufficient, right? He doesn't need anything else, but it also has the idea that everything needs him, right? That's what the Israelites need to know, is that they need him, and that they're going to rely on him. And we see that really all the way through Exodus, is the idea that God is trying to hammer into their heads, you need me, and you need to rely on me. And he tries to tell them that over and over and over again. So at the very beginning, when he tells them who he is, I am. So you rely on me. And I just wanted to point that out.
I'm the one that can help you, that you need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one in control. Okay, well, we're to 16 here. So he tells us, says, go gather the elders of Israel together. Say to them, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you, seen what is done to you in Egypt, and I have said, I will bring you up out of the land of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, and he mentions the rest of them there. And I think by mentioning those, there are probably more people than that live there, but that would give him and them and us maybe an idea of the land, the area of the land he's talking about there. So he says, go to him and tell him, I've heard your prayers. I've got a better land ready for you. I'm gonna bring you out of here, and I'm gonna take you somewhere better. So in 18 it says, then they will heed your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has met with us. And now, please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. So he says, go to him, tell him what I told you, and he repeated it. And then he says, get the elders of Israel there, some of the, I don't know exactly who that would be referring to, some of the ones that are older or leaders or whatever way they might be, and go to Pharaoh and tell him that our God came to us and we need to leave for a few days. Now, how do you think that would be received by Pharaoh? Seems kind of, to even ask him to do that. Like it's going to tell us in the next verse that God tells him it's not going to, it's not going to
Spoilers.
heed what you say. But I mean, imagine hearing that told to you and knowing like that. Man, that's what our plan is, to go and just tell him we need to leave.
But I mean, like, until we get to the next verse, you would almost be like, well, you're going to go to the people and you're going to tell them, and he repeats the promises, right? So he's promising to the people the things he's already promised to their forefathers. And then he says, and what will they do? What will the people do? They will listen, right? Okay. Maybe that was a little too much. I don't know. But they will listen, right? So you're like, okay, well, that's going to be a success. Then you're going to go to Pharaoh. And it's like, well, maybe this is going to be a success.
And I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go. No, not even by a mighty hand. So he prepares him to be prepared for opposition. He says, you're going to go to him, you're going to explain to him that you're ready to leave and that your God is ready for you to leave. He said that our God came to us and told us that. And that's how this is going to start. It's going to start by you letting Pharaoh know that the Lord God of Israel is ready for his people to leave. But be prepared for Pharaoh to oppose that.
So why would we give Pharaoh the chance, you think? Why would we go to Pharaoh and ask if God's like, well, I already know he's going to say no?
Because all God is
Free will.
long-suffering and patient, gives us free will so that all may be saved and no one. So
Yeah. Does God give chances? Even if he's like, it's not going to work out, he still gives a chance. I think you see that here.
Pharaoh needs to know who he is, and the people need to know who he is. And so
Mm-hmm.
this conflict, I guess, has to happen for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So things have to be established, right?
It's established with the children of Israel that God's the one doing this, and it's going to be very clear right up front with Pharaoh that Lord is the one
It's
doing it.
also too that God's given Pharaoh, I mean, later on when he's dead and gone and he gets before judgment, he can't say, well, you just took them from him. And God says, well, Moses came and asked you that I asked for, and you said no, and repeatedly said no. It was your decision on the destruction that you received by your root. It wasn't me. I was just judging you after you told me no.
Yeah. And it may, I mean, I don't even think God had to give Pharaoh a chance here because, I mean, how are the Egyptians already treating the people of Israel? Yeah, I mean, in a way that would probably be condemning of the Egyptians. I don't think he has to give him a chance, but he does. And it may be what you're saying, just to make extra sure that he knows he had a chance and didn't take it. And that everybody knows, to the point earlier, everybody knows who God is and that strength is found in him, not in Pharaoh.
Obviously, I know it didn't work out this way, but would it have just been a sacrifice at the beginning if Pharaoh would have said, okay, sure? Like when they.
Oh, I don't know about
like,
that.
crazy to think about. Like, would he have just let them go back into slavery? If Pharaoh would have said, okay, go do your sacrifice and then come back?
So I would say,
3 days.
Yeah.
I would say he's already made the promise. You will be in the land of the Canaanites.
Yeah.
And so that's going to happen. And so it may be that they go for 3 days, come back, and then they go forever. So, yeah.
Doesn't matter though.
Yeah.
Okay, well, verse 20. So I will stretch out my hand, strike Egypt with my wonders, with all my wonders, which I will do in its midst, and after that he will let you go. So he's telling him, he said, it's going to take me using my power to make it happen. He's clarifying that with Moses. And he tells him some more information here in the last 2 verses of chapter 3. It says, I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, which sounds very odd at this point. It shall be when you go that it shall be that you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask of her neighbor, namely of her who dwells near her house, articles of silver, articles of gold, clothing. You shall put them on your sons and your daughters. You shall plunder the Egyptians. So it's went from, we're going to get you out of here, till you're going to walk out wearing all their nice, fancy stuff, all their jewelry. You're going to leave here wealthy, which is just another level of odd but amazing the way this will turn out.
So they're going to be saved and they're going to be blessed in this.
Yes. Yes.
Do you think that Moses was a foreshadow of that? Not only was he saved, but he was blessed when he was in Egypt.
Could be.
Possible.
I'm not sure. Yes. I don't know.
So they're going to be happy just to leave, but he tells them that it's going to be even better than that.
Mm-hmm.
So here, still in this conversation, we're to chapter 4 here, and Moses answers back and says, but suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say the Lord has not appeared to you. So what if they don't listen? Well, so the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, cast it on the ground. So he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from it. So Moses is still questioning, what if they don't listen? What if God's already said that they would listen, but what if they don't? Or the children of Israel at least would listen to him. But what if they don't listen? And he uses this example. Throw your stick there. and it turns into a snake. And what happened? How did that affect Moses? What did he do? He ran. So I like watching like funny videos and stuff. And, those videos where they prank people with snakes or clip a snake on them or whatever, and see people's reactions. Fake snake, yeah, fake snake, fake snake. But Moses, this startles Moses. His rod, turns into a snake here. So this miracle that he allows Moses kind of to be a part of. But then in verse 4, the Lord said to Moses, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." Okay, so now pick it back up. So I don't know if Moses was scared of snakes or not, but God tells him to reach down and pick it back up, and it says he did. He says he reached out his hand, caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. So it turns back to a rod. So God says, "Okay, well, here's something to increase your faith. Here's something to make you a little more confident." God is patient with him here. He gives him something to help his mind a little bit in what he's going to do.
Yeah, and that's a good point, saying he's patient here, because I think Moses, in my opinion, maybe I'm reading a little bit too much in this, but it seems like this is the first question he's asked that there's doubt in. The previous ones were more, to me, I could classify them more as information seeking, and this one's more about doubt. Well, what if they don't think that this is going to work? And so that's a question of doubt, and I think we'll see it continue to progress in that direction. But he does have patience.
Yeah, God could have said, "Quit asking questions. Don't worry about it," But he is patient with him here.
And this is kind of a test. Moses, because I can tell you right now, I would feel
You'd had a hard time.
Not take the snake if I could.
Well, it does beg the question: is like, what are you more afraid of, God or the snake?
If God's telling you to do it, you might be scared.
If God says, "Pick up the snake,"
he might have closed his eyes and just reached down and grabbed it. I don't know. Don't know how it works. But verse 5 says that they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and God of Jacob has appeared to you. But he goes farther. He says, "Furthermore, the Lord just throws another one out here for you. Now put your hand in your bosom." And he put his hand in his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous like snow. So stick your hand in your garment there, pull it back out, it does. And leprosy is there's not a little speck. It's white as snow. It's rotten, nasty leprosy on his hand. So now it's on him. This is shocking again to Moses. Lots happening to Moses here on this day, right? Moses emotions in his mind are all over the place. So now Moses has got leprosy. But in verse 7 he says, "Put your hand in your bosom again." So as shocking as it would be to have that happen to you, one of the last things you want to do is stick your leprous hand back in your bosom there.
Try to infect it.
Yeah. But he tells him to stick it, put it back in again, and he put his hand in his bosom again and drew it out. And behold, it was restored like his other flesh. It was like nothing ever happened. So again, just another miracle, another sign that Moses is given to increase his confidence and his faith here in this situation. So then the Lord goes a little farther and he says, "Then it will be, if they do not believe you, nor heed the message of the first sign, that they may believe the message of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on dry land. The water which you take from the river will become blood on the dry land." So he gives him a third option, a third sign that he can do here. He tells him if they don't heed the first two. And a couple things, we're going to see this, it's one of the plagues. We're going to see water from the river, in the river turning to blood. And I've also, I read a couple different things. Maybe this, the Nile was where they were throwing, throwing. So maybe it was some alludes to that in some way. I don't know. But anyway, he gives him some signs here at this point to build him up. So at this point, any other comments or anybody have anything to add?
Yeah, I think, right here, what we've been talking about the past couple of minutes is just, I think it's God proving what Austin said earlier about it not being about Moses. I think he is just, by these signs that he's done to Moses here, you're talking about a lot going on with him. He's showing Moses that it's not about him, that God himself can do.
I've got this under control. Yeah.
Because I saw a little bit of doubt in both questions you were talking about it just a second. And as we read through them, I was kind of like, what came to my mind was what we say, the saying, just so you know. You know, when Moses said, well, what if they ask me what your name is? In my mind, God's name didn't really have a lot to do with it there. You know, that was just kind of, I thought that was just kind of Moses grasping at straws.
Yeah.
You know, and God's like, well, just so you know, this is who I really am. And
he answered it
he
for us.
proceeds to answer it, yeah. And then same with these questions, you know, just so you know, do this and I'll show you that it's about me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, verse 10, Moses said, oh, I'm sorry.
Why is all this necessary? Why the name? Why all the signs? If you've been enslaved in building bricks and you hadn't heard from God in a while, aren't you going to doubt? Who are you? Where you been?
Mm-hmm.
What's your name? What can you do for me? I'm enslaved. I'm building all these bricks. Where you been for all these years? We're worshiping calves. That's what the Egyptians worship. Then what the Israelites going to do later on? They get it from the Egyptians. They build a golden calf. So you see where all this doubt comes in people?
Mm-hmm.
You hadn't answered my prayers for years.
Why now?
Why now?
Yeah.
I'd be just like Moses. Who are you? Where you been? You mean I gotta go to Pharaoh? What have you? I don't even know you.
So maybe he is thinking more of in the minds of the people and the questions they would have.
People didn't believe he had to go before the sign. We're gonna read that in a few more verses, right?
Mm.
And they believed. So they just didn't go, oh, God's gonna do this. No, he had to go do these signs.
Yeah.
So there's doubt among all people, not just Moses.
Okay, good. So verse 10, Moses says to the Lord, oh my Lord, I'm not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant. But I am slow of speech and slow to tongue. So Moses says, but I'm not a good speaker. I probably wouldn't be a good one to choose. I'm not very good. I don't know that I'd fit this role very well. So the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say. So this is just another instance where God says, look, Moses, I'm the one that made your mouth. I gave you the ability that you have, and you're the one that I've chosen and I've told to do this.
Seems a little bit more blunt here.
Yes, yes, I believe so. I made everyone's mouth, and again, it's going to be me, not you, that's doing this. Okay, so you're still the one. You're still the one that I've chosen. But in 13, he says, "Oh my Lord, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send." So at this point, he's just like, "Do I have to? I'd rather not. Can I?" He just gets to the point of just flat out saying, "Look, do I have? Can somebody else not do this? Can you pick somebody else? Please pick somebody else."
He's tried to find ways out by asking questions, and now he's like, "I just don't want to do it."
Yeah, at this point,
refusal.
I don't think I want to do this. And then we end up. So at this point, the anger of the Lord, I'm in 14, was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well, and look, he is also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. Now you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. So he shall be your spokesman to the people, and he himself shall be as a mouth for you, and you shall be to him as God. And you shall take this rod in your hand, with which you shall do the signs. So he does tell him that his brother Eric is going to get to kind of be there beside him when he goes and does this. And he says, you will be as God. I'm going to tell you what to say. I'm going to relay, you're going to relay to Aaron what you want him to say. But he doesn't get out of it.
Yeah.
You're the one that I've chosen. You're the one that's doing it. Even when he said, I don't want to, please choose somebody else.
And, we see something here in God's character. Is God angry?
His anger
Yes.
was aroused there.
He's angry. Does he destroy Moses? No. And in fact, does he even try to help Moses here? Yes. And what we'll see is that he's going to do the same thing for the people. He'll be angry at the people when they do something, but he won't destroy them completely. And in several cases, he's actually going to try to help the people with maybe their complaint. So that's something to think about as well.
All right. Good deal. Thank you for comments. See you Sunday.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.